Fox News loves a good fight. That's what keeps the lights on and the ratings up, the sparks that fly. When two people on opposite ends of the political firestorm lock horns in front of millions. But every now and then, the fire gets so hot, it burns a hole straight through the screen, leaving even the seasoned producers scrambling to pull the plug before the network's carefully crafted chaos devour itself alive. That's exactly what happened the day Jessica Tarlov, the brainy liberal firebrand who made a career out of keeping her cool, went toe-to-toe with Greg Gutfeld, Fox's resident class clown, turned kingmaker, in a live segment that spiraled so far out of control that not even the censors knew where to look. Was supposed to be another round segment on the 5. You know, the usual mix of scripted digs and playful barbs. Greg pokes Jessica Perry's. The audience chuckles. The other co-hosts throw in a few cheap shots, and everyone goes home feeling smug. But that day, something snapped. Maybe it was the heat of the election cycle. Maybe it was the months of thinly veiled personal jabs. Greg kept lobbing at Jessica the little digs about her tone, her voice, her background, or maybe it was the fact that behind the scenes, the two had been circling each other for weeks, like rival lions in a cage. A brewing storm no one dared admit was about to explode. The topic was immigration. Predictable, hot button, perfect for fireworks. Greg started with his usual smirk, a few well-timed quips about open borders and liberal tears. Jessica, who's made an art out of countering with calm, bulletproof stats, leaned forward the way she always does when she's about to dismantle him with facts. But this time, she didn't stick to the numbers. This time, the weariness in her voice cut through the studio's forced laughter. She called Greg's jokes cheap. She called his statistics cherry-picked. She said what millions of viewers yell at their screens but never expect to hear live. That the emperor was standing there with no clothes, hiding behind punchlines, because the facts didn't fit the brand. Greg shot back. His grin got wider, meaner. He mocked her voice, that trademark Gutfeld twist, turning the volume up so the audience would laugh along. He called her the queen of condescension, rolled his eyes so far back they might have gotten stuck. But Jessica didn't blink. She leaned in, voice low, words deliberate, the studio mic catching every syllable. She accused him of using people's real fears for punchlines. She called him out for coasting on snark, while real families lived with the consequences of policies he dismissed with a joke. The tension crackled through the cameras like a short circuit. The producers in the booth leaned forward, hands hovering over the kill switch they rarely had to use. But it wasn't over, because that's when Greg made it personal. He dropped her husband's name, a man whose politics had always been off limits on air. He made a sneering joke about Jessica sleeping with the enemy, and turned to the audience, mugging for laughs that didn't come. You could hear a pin drop on that polished floor. One of the other co-hosts coughed, a nervous tick, a sign that even the pros knew they'd just stepped off the rails. Jessica's face went white, then red. Her eyes narrowed, and that's when she said, the one thing no one expected. Say that again. Say it outside this studio, and see what happens. Greg laughed, that high-pitched bark of a laugh that always makes the online clips go viral. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, so sure he'd landed the knockout blow. But Jessica didn't flinch. She stood up live on air, leaned across the table, and called him a coward. She said if he had any real guts, he'd have the debate off. The script, no safety net, no camera lights, just truth against punchline, fact against joke. And for a split second, the great Gutfeld looked like he'd been slapped in front of every living room in America. The producers scrambled. The floor director whispered into a headset, eyes wide. Commercial break graphics flashed on the control board but never made it to the screen. The fight was too raw, too real to cut away cleanly. The other hosts tried to diffuse it, a weak joke here, a forced chuckle there. But the poison was out, and it wasn't going back in the bottle. And then the moment that sealed it all, Jessica, mix still hot, told Greg he'd built a career, mocking real pain while people like her spent their lives trying to fix what he laughs at. She told him she wouldn't waste one more second sitting next to him while he treated politics like a frat house roast. And with that, she pulled off her mic, tossed it on the table, the thud echoing in the stunned studio, and turned to walk out. But Fox wasn't about to let that image go live uncut. Security moved in before she made it 3 steps. A producer in a blazer and headset slipped onto the stage, trying to calm her down, arms out like she was stopping a bar fight. Another crew member cut her mic feed, and in that split chaos, Greg Gutfeld's smirk froze, caught between glee and shock. He didn't know whether to chase the final word or just let her go. He chose silence for once. They ushered Jessica off set like she was radioactive. Audience members sat frozen, their polite claps forgotten. The cameras cut to a desperate break, a commercial for some insurance company droning over the stunned faces of viewers who couldn't believe what they'd just seen. Not by the time the segment hit the edit room, the spin machine was already roaring. Official statements went out within the hour. A spirited debate. They called it unfortunate, but the show must go on. Jessica was taking a break. Greg was looking forward to more lively discussions, but off the record, the crew told a different story. Jessica's office was emptied out by morning, her name scrubbed from internal call sheets. Rumors swirled that her contract wouldn't be renewed. Gutfeld meanwhile doubled down on air the next night. A sly jab here, a mocking reference there. The king of the sarcastic kill shot, now with one more trophy on his shelf. But if you listen closely to the hallways at Fox, some say the fight didn't really end there. Insiders claim that Jessica is plotting her next move. Conversations already happening with other networks hungry for a pundit who isn't afraid to torch the old guard live on air. Some say she's shopping a podcast deal, ready to drag the fight into the digital arena where no producer can cut to commercial. Others whisper she's done with TV altogether, that she's tired of the on-air cage match, that she wants to do real work, unfiltered and unedited. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld sits on his throne, still king of the smug grin, still swinging from the same rope of snark and sarcasm that's made him one of Fox's biggest draws. But even he knows when the studio lights go dark and the audience files out that somewhere out there Jessica Tarlov is